I think I just broke Elden Ring. If you're a subscriber to my channel or in my community Discord, you may have seen me talk about how crazy my next build is and how I've spent days calculating numbers and researching the limits to my findings. Like, I even made a spreadsheet for all the numbers. Like, god damn, I need to go touch grass. But as you can see, my newest build is here and is legitimately insane. I put a lot of love and effort into this game and finding cool shit, and I know that once I post this video, everyone is going to start using it and potentially larger channels getting more attention from it than my own since I'm just a small creator. But hey, that's a part of the gig, I guess. So be sure to slap a fat fucking like and subscribe for more. Everyone had immediately dismissed the explosive crystal tier as useless, something to trick noobs who aren't too careful, or tried it and thought it was funny but underwhelming. However, as a Souls veteran, I know that Miyazaki puts nothing in his game that is useless. After days of researching, I feel like I've solved some sort of hidden Easter egg because this is technically not a bug. It is working as intended, a famous phrase used in Souls games, but I promise this is not ironic and is meant to work this way. My first major finding was that there are not one, but two ruptured crystals within the world of Elden Ring. And before you ask, yes, you can use both at once. Using just one ruptured crystal in your physics flask is underwhelming and sort of useless, as it deals about the same damage to yourself as it would to anyone else. But by adding both, you can immediately get 2,000 holy damage in a single burst, which is a lot. But with my build, I can reach almost 8,000 damage. Like, this is actually insane. It should be noted that any increase to the explosion damage does not increase the self-inflicted damage. The ruptured crystals will individually do a set amount of 300 damage, and when stacked, for whatever reason, deals 700 damage. Its self-damage seems to not be negated by any sort of defensive stats and is not a percentage based off maximum HP. It seems to always deal 300 damage for one and 700 damage for both to the user. My second major finding is that yes, it does deal holy damage specifically. I found out that that is the actual type of damage that the explosion does. If you read the info of the ruptured crystal tier, the last line states, faith can be a volatile matter. Now, taking the ambiguity of Dark Souls games, this is not telling you that faith directly increases this damage, rather that it does holy damage. It should be noted that while this does deal holy damage, it does not scale off any player stats or increase to their faith attribute, essentially meaning it can be increased with items, spells, and abilities, but not directly scaling off any player stats. As soon as I noticed this, I knew Miyazaki had intentionally left this in to be found, but made it tricky to work well. Now that I had both explosive tiers, knew the holy damage could be indirectly increased, and that increasing the damage to others does not increase the damage to myself, I needed to try as hard as I could to break the game. I made a spreadsheet with all my calculations and basic functions plugged in to get all the numbers that you see here. Pause it here real fast if you want to read it all, because this is just nerd shit that I know most of you don't care about, and all you guys really want to see is the boom. Testing the hint that the ruptured tier description gave for the holy damage type theory, as far as I know, there aren't a whole lot of items or spells that increase holy damage directly besides the Sacred Scorpion Charm and the Holy Shrouding Crack tier that both amplify the explosion damage. These both work and both increase its damage, like I said. However, I've tested it already, and having two explosive tiers is always more damage instead of one explosive tier plus one holy tier, so I won't bother showing that at all because that part should be pretty fucking common sense. Come on, like 2 is greater than 1. Starting off with all the tests of just the flask and no additional gear, you can see it does 864 damage, and 2 explosive tiers can stack together and make it 1,890 holy damage. It takes 1 second for the animation of the character sipping its flask to finish, then takes another 3 seconds for the player to explode from start to finish, which is obviously 4 seconds total. Once again, the player stats and attribute levels do not increase the total damage to my findings, which means the damage you see should be consistent regardless of level, but I could be wrong on that. I tested all my results on the Godric soldier closest to the Gatefront Grace, in order to not inflate my damage numbers, but rather to purely record consistent data. I can't stress this enough. The numbers will change depending on the target that you hit. But anyways, the Sacred Scorpion Charm will give a permanent increase in damage so long as it's equipped to roughly add 100 extra damage whenever you use the single tier plus Sacred Scorpion Charm, totaling to a new 967 base damage, which is pretty insane. But it adds an extra 200 extra damage if you use 2 explosive tiers plus the Sacred Scorpion Charm for a new total of 2,116 base damage as well. But we gotta keep it going. The next is Golden Vow, which is an incantation buff that lasts 80 seconds, but anytime during that 80-second duration will increase your single explosion tier or both explosion tiers by roughly 15% once drank. The reason this works is because it's a general attack increase to your character, which means that basically any type of damage that you can do will be increased with the spell as well. It does not specify. With 1 explosion tier plus the Sacred Scorpion Charm, and Golden Vow, the explosion deals 1,112 base damage. But with 2 explosion tiers, plus the Sacred Scorpion Charm and Golden Vow again, it will deal 2,434, but it doesn't stop here. Finally, you have the Ash of War known as Royal Knight's Resolve, which I'll abbreviate as RKR from this point onwards. This one is probably the only part that is not intended to work this way, as it is meant to increase the attack from your character's weapon, but it can indirectly apply to spells, incantations, and items, and isn't consumed after attacking with one. This means that it works really fucking well with your explosion damage. With 1 explosion tier, plus Sacred Scorpion, plus Golden Vow, and Royal Knight's Resolve, this explosion deals 2,003 damage. And with 2 explosion tiers, plus the Sacred Scorpion Charm, plus Golden Vow, and RKR, it will deal 4,381 damage. But trust me, 1 is not enough, and it doesn't stop here. If you were to duplicate the RKR Ash of War and apply it to 2 weapons, and then use it, with 1 explosion tier, plus the Sacred Scorpion, plus Golden Vow, and 2 RKRs. On top of that, the explosion will deal 3,605 damage. But if we used 2 explosion tiers, Sacred Scorpion, Golden Vow, and 2 RKRs on top of everything else, we get that juicy 7,887 damage. That turns you into a walking holy atom bomb, dude. My findings are likely rising in popularity because I had to become a massive asshole and have been testing my findings in multiplayer for the last several days at the time of this video. And usually when one person dies to something broken in multiplayer, they'll try to replicate it and spread it like wildfire to others. My final testings conclude that the damage of your weapon or its scaling and the max explosion damage can be mitigated by defensive stats, as most bosses around Altus Plateau and onward only take about 1/3 of its HP bar. But in multiplayer, where I've tested it the most, it is extremely effective and will almost always one-shot players, with the drawback being its extremely short range. Things like Hoarfrost Stomp, sorceries, and general spacing can render this method ineffective and make you look ridiculous. Please leave a like and sub because I've been working on this for the last few days, and I really hope this video gets shown some love so that I can keep making videos and see what else I can break in Elden Ring in the next video. Peace.